Hi everybody, welcome to my video on non-fictional prose in the age of Wordsworth. The age of Wordsworth begins in 1798 and it goes on till 1850. So today we're going to talk about some of the most important reviews and magazines that were written during this period. Reviews being the critical essays in the form of single individual essays and magazines being a compilation of these essays. So this was the major trend during the Romantic era. This was the trend in the prose writing. So we're going to talk all about it. We're going to look at all the important details of these reviews and magazines so that if you're preparing for any entrance exam, you are prepared for it as well. And even if you just want to know about it, as basic general knowledge, so even then it will be really helpful for you. So let's begin. All right. So I'm going to begin with throwing some light on the general characteristics of prose written during the Romantic era. Now we all know that Romantic era is characterized by great poetry, by great verse writing, but what about the prose? See, in my last video I had discussed about the prose written during the period of Dr. Samuel Johnson, particularly his dictionary. Now because he was this great prose critical writer, a trend had began in towards the end of the 18th century, and that trend also its influence can also be noted in the beginning of the 19th century when the Romantic poets were writing their poems. So as far as the prose of the era is concerned, we generally see the dominance or the dominance of the reviews and the magazines that were written during this period. Individual essays gain momentum over full-length books. So because these reviews, they were basically written in the form of single essays, they were generally 3 to 4 page long. Hence, a new style of prose writing came into vogue, which was essay writing. So now writers, specifically prose writers, preferred writing these 3-4 page long essays rather than publishing long books, huge books. All right, and criticism of contemporary literature in the form of reviews became popular since Dr. Johnson. So like I mentioned, because Dr. Johnson is known as the father of practical criticism, because he for the first time ever reviewed the entire body of plays of William Shakespeare, and we all popularly know the most famous work the most famous work of criticism that is done by him is the preface to Shakespeare. Right, so that is the point from where practical criticism begins in English literature. So from Dr. Samuel Johnson, this trend is followed thenceforth, and in the Romantic era, we see the dominance of this trend in the form of criticisms of contemporary literature. So that means if one writer is publishing a novel or is writing a poem, then another writer is reviewing his work. He's criticizing his work in the form of a review that can later on be compiled in a magazine. So in today's class, like I mentioned, I'm going to talk about all of these important reviews and magazines. The four most important of them being the Edinburgh Review, which ran between 1802 to 1929, the Quarterly Review that ran between 1809 to 1967, the Blackwood's Edinburgh Magazine that ran between 1817 to 1980, and the London Magazine that started in 1732 and it is still in publication. So guys, now one by one, I will have a close look at each of the following. I will provide you with all the relevant information regarding these reviews and magazines. Please take a pen and a paper if you are preparing for any PhD entrance or MPhil or MA entrance, or maybe if you're preparing for the NET exam, then the set of information will be really helpful for you. Alright, so I'd like to begin with the Edinburgh Review first. So this was the first of its kind review magazine that came into publication. Its first imprints are found in 1755 as a short-lived review. So at first, it only came out as a one-year publication. It was started by some Scottish intellectuals of the Select Society. It began with the aim, quote unquote, I mean, this was what the Edinburgh Review's first edition itself published. So in its own words, the Edinburgh Review meant to demonstrate the progressive state of learning in this country. And by this country, I mean Scotland. Like I mentioned, it was started by Scottish intellectuals in Scotland. So this country meant Scotland. And this magazine aimed to, it also aimed to provide motivation and inspiration to young Scots. Hence, for the Scots, it meant to be a more eager pursuit of learning, to distinguish themselves and to do honor to their country. The Scots doing honor to Scotland. So this was the aim and objective of the first Edinburgh Review, which was only a year long. It was a very short-lived edition. Now this magazine, this review was resurrected between 1773 to 1776. However, the most important, the most popular one that we are going to talk about is the Romantic Era publication, the Romantic Era edition that began in 1802 and it went on till 1929. So well into the modern era, it went well into that. This was the most popular and the most long-lasting version. It was started by Francis Jeffrey, Henry Brogan, Sidney Smith, and Francis Horner as a quarterly. This magazine ferociously promoted the Whig agenda of liberalism, democracy, and romanticism. So, as you all know, Whigs were the people who were politically inclined towards the liberal politics, the democratic politics, and they were anti-royalist, they were anti-king. So, this magazine also very ferociously promoted that Whig agenda of politics. So that also means that somewhere or the other it was very much pro the romantic poets. It was very much pro romantic writers. But at some point it did criticize William Wordsworth because, as we all know, William Wordsworth started off as a liberal. However, midway he took a U-turn and he became a conservative back again. So at that point, the Edinburgh Review was not, it did not keep a mum mouth. It rather very scathingly criticized William Wordsworth for his U-turn. The motto of this magazine, it was provided as a Latin quote, which I would not be able to speak out. However, the English translation of that motto is, "The judge is condemned when the guilty is acquitted." So basically it's trying to say that if you know, if you are a spectator to something, if you're a spectator to something going on wrong and you speak, if you keep mum about it, if you don't talk about it, then you are equally guilty, right? So with that motto, this magazine came into front. Alright guys, the next magazine that I'm going to talk about is the Quarterly Review. Now let me tell you that if the Edinburgh Review was North Pole, then the Quarterly Review was the South Pole. These were the two polarly opposite magazines. Why? Because the Edinburgh Review was an entirely Whig-inclined review and the Quarterly Review was an entirely Tory-inclined review. Who were the Tories? Tories were the people who were royalist. They believed in the royal absolutism of the monarchy in England. Now, the Quarterly Review was published between 1809 to 1967. Its main agenda was to counter the Whig politics that was propagandized by the Edinburgh Review. The important, please do note down the important literary figures who contributed to the Quarterly Review. They being the poet laureate of the contemporary era, Robert Southey, Walter Scott, the famous Scott poet, Charles Lamb, etc. Now, it also severely attacked some very famous poets, writers came under the direct knife. They came under the direct brunt of the scathing criticism of the Quarterly Review. They being Mary Wollstonecraft, P.B. Shelley, her husband, John Keats, Leigh Hunt, etc. Now, John Keats' Endymion's review was so bitter and it was so chilling that according to P.B. Shelley, John Keats died of it. I mean, P.B. Shelley, because we all know that John Keats died a very young death because of pulmonary disease. But it is also said that he drowned himself into a long bout of depression and sadness, melancholy rather, because his very heartfelt venture, Endymion, was so scathingly reviewed and criticized by the Quarterly Review. Okay, so do remember, this is a magazine. So in papers like NET, UGC NET, NTA UGC NET, these kinds of questions are very frequently asked. So if you have your notes prepared on these topics, it becomes utterly easy for you to answer these questions. All right, guys, the third one that I'm going to talk about is the Blackwood's Edinburgh magazine. Now, this magazine was started by William Blackwood in 1817, and initially it was called the Edinburgh Monthly Magazine. I mean, it was a expansion of the Edinburgh Review agenda. All right. However, it could not become an instant success, and William Blackwood had to also he also had to fire the initial editors, and later on he himself became the editor and started calling it Mega. Now, it was then later renamed Blackwood's Edinburgh magazine, of course. Now, the Blackwood Edinburgh magazine was supported. It supported Tory ideology, and it ferociously targeted the Edinburgh Review. See, now the quarterly review, it was not ferociously. It did not bring out any ferocious attacks against the Edinburgh Review. However, the Blackwood's Edinburgh magazine brought out scathing and rather very sharp criticisms towards the Tory ideology of the Edinburgh Review. Nonetheless, it still published articles from such romantic revolutionaries as P.B. Shelley and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. So, because it itself had its own, Tory ideology, nonetheless, it did not stop it from publishing articles from such eminent romantic liberal writers as P.B. Shelley and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Apart from critical essays, please do take note of this. Apart from critical essays, it also published horror fiction, which later influenced such Victorian Gothic writers as Bronte sisters, Edgar Allan Poe, Charles Dickens, etc. Okay, very important to note. Then important writers who contributed to this magazine was Joseph Conrad, John Gibson Lockhart, John Wilson, George Eliot, Thomas De Quincey, etc. Please do take note that Joseph Conrad's famous novella Heart of Darkness was published in the February, March and April issues of the magazine, of the 1899 issue. And the famous contributor John Wilson, he wrote under the pseudonym of Christopher North, a very important point to remember. The title page has the portrait of George Buchanan, who was a 16th century Scottish religious and political thinker. So on the title page of the magazine, the portrait of George Buchanan was printed. The last edition came out in 1980, and since then it has been shut. Guys, last but not the least, I would like to bring a good mention to the London Magazine. Now, the London Magazine has a very disputed and highly contested history. There has been a lot of fragmentation. There were many resurrections. Some resurrections the London Magazine does account for, but some it does not account for. But I have here mentioned only the one that the London Magazine officially accounts for. So the first ever London Magazine which began was in the year 1732, back in the 18th century, as a Whig rival to Tory Gentleman's Magazine. Now, the Gentleman's Magazine was a very famous Tory magazine in the 18th century England. So, as a Whig rival to it, the London Magazine began. So, it went on between 1732 to 1785. Then the second resurrection happened in the year 1820, and it went on till 1829. So this is the one that we're basically going to look at, because this happens to be in the Romantic era, and that is the topic of today's video. So the 1820 to 1829 resurrection was done by Baldwin, Craddock and Joy, and this part of or rather these editions saw contributions from such eminent literary figures as William Wordsworth, P.B. Shelley, Charles Lamb, William Hazlitt, John Keats. And as you all know, Charles Lamb and William Hazlitt are one of the most important essayists and critical writers of the Victorian era and the Romantic era. I'm going to make a separate video on these individual writers later on. But for now, let's have a look at this magazine. So, not to forget, John Keats was one of the important contributors as well. The third resurrection happened in the year 1898 and it went on till 1933. So what happened is that in 1898 the magazine was resurrected, and in 1901 it was renamed as the Harmsworth magazine by the endeavors of Cecil Harmsworth. And in 1913 then it was renamed to the New London magazine. So all of these changes were constantly happening. Okay. Now from 1954, a fourth and a final resurrection happened, and this magazine is still in publication. It is still being published, presently published, printed 6 times a year. So in 1954, a new periodical was given the name of the London magazine. That means that this new, the currently running London magazine, it has nothing to do with the older version. So this was a new magazine that started being published, and it was called the London magazine. The new editor was John Layman when it was started in 1954, and this magazine was greatly supported and promoted by T.S. Eliot. Friends, with that, I would like to end the class of today. I hope you all learned a lot about the non-fictional prose or the essays and magazines and reviews of the Romantic era. I'm going to go in a similar order. I'm going to make the next video on the non-fictional prose of the Victorian era, and if you want to have a look at that video as well, if you're really passionate about literature and you want to make any of your competitive exams attempt worthwhile, then do subscribe to my page to get regular updates on such videos, and do hit the like button if you like the video of today. Share it with your friends and spread the word. Bye bye, take care.